Jennifer, if you will start, we will call this meeting to order. All right, board members, again, thank you for taking the time to be here for our board meeting tonight. We will go around the table to do a quorum call. If you will let us know that you're present. We'll start on one end of the table, Ms. Allwood. Okay, we got word that we thought Ms. Allwood may be feeling ill, so she may join us later. Mr. Rivers?
I'm here.
Mr. McKnight? Dr. McKnight?
He is present. I did see him on the call just a few minutes ago.
Here. Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Peace?
Here.
Mr. Udy?
Present.
Dr. Houlihan?
Present.
Dr. McLean?
Present.
Dr. Myrick?
Present.
Ms. Day?
Present.
Dr. Winborn?
Present.
Ms. Pettaway?
Here.
Attorney Dudison?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. We do have a quorum. Ms. Allred is not with us this evening, and so we'll begin with the invocation if you'll join us as we pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come together tonight to discuss the business of the district. Father, we do pray that you guide us and direct us as we seek to do what's in the best interest of children. Father, we do pray that you offer protection for our families and our close loved ones and our friends, those across the district as we are still dealing with the COVID. And Father, we just ask that you give wisdom to our leaders. And Father, just help us make wise decisions tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, Mr. Udy, I believe you have the pledge tonight.
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. All right, board members, on board docs, prior to the meeting, you see that there are minutes there for your approval. There is one set of minutes from March 16th, and after you've had a moment to take a look at that, we'll entertain a motion for those.
Excuse me, but I can't hear anything.
No one said anything at this point.
Well, that's a good reason why.
All right, so we are entertaining a motion for the minutes.
I make a motion to be approved as presented.
Okay. Dr. Houlihan makes a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Dr. Yes, sir.
I was present at that meeting. That was the one where I could not speak, but I sent in an email, I believe.
Okay, so we need to offer a correction that Mr. Udy be counted present for that meeting. All right. All right, so I have a motion to approve Dr. Houlihan as corrected. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And a second by Dr. McKnight. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? All right. Madam Superintendent, do we have any agenda changes tonight?
No, sir. No agenda changes.
Great, thank you. Dr. Winborn, do we have public comment tonight?
No, sir. No one signed up for public comment.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Madam Superintendent, if you will give us your report.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, and community. I am delighted this evening to share many wonderful comments with you since we've met the last time. To begin, I am honored to share that this is Teacher Appreciation Week. So happy Teacher Appreciation Week to some of the world's best educators. Allow me to be the first to say thank you for all you do, especially this year when what you had planned was altered by COVID-19. All of us, might I say, appreciate your fast response, your love, and the continuous devotion you offer to the children in our district. We admire your willingness to shift your practice to both synchronous and asynchronous methodologies in the remote settings you are thrust into, and continue to smile. We appreciate the many acts of kindness you have displayed, like the note campaigns, the car parades with the big fire trucks for the children, meal volunteering, packet compilation, and virtual hugs and kisses blown through face masks. We all admire our Granville County Public Schools educators who have helped neighbors, friends, their own children, while continuing to do more each day. As such, we declared this week our How Are You Doing Week. Why? So that we might all take just a little extra effort to not only check on our students, which we will do, but our colleagues and those right alongside us in this business called school during these unprecedented times. So I am asking everyone under the sound of my voice to reach out this week to a child, a teen, a tween, an educator, an administrator, a custodian, a child nutrition worker, a bus driver, a central office worker, a teacher assistant, a secretary. Reach out to a parent or guardian who became a facilitator of learning or a babysitter overnight and ask 4 simple words. How are you doing? And do not hesitate to share the phone numbers and websites of our counselors and social workers, which can be found on the websites. We want everyone safe and emotionally healthy in our district. This COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted everyone's world and interrupted our normal as we once knew it. But together we can find comfort, hope, and restoration. Please know Granville County Public Schools is here to help. Now, last Friday was National Principal Day, and I'd like to salute all of our hard-working principals for everything they do 24/7 to keep our schools like well-oiled machines. Hats off to each of you. It was also National Child Nutrition Hero Day, and Granville County Public Schools appreciates every single child nutrition worker for every contribution made to keeping students fed all the time. We've not missed a beat in our district. We have some amazing individuals in our organization, and if you get an opportunity to say thank you this week, I know it will be greatly appreciated. Now, on Sunday, something else magnificent occurred, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank 3 parents who represented Granville County Public Schools exceptionally well, along with Mr. Xavier Wortham, for their broadcast with North Carolina's Education Matters series. They gave some tips, they gave some advice, and they told it like it was from a parent perspective. But I would like to salute them for a job well done. Also, if you are interested in learning more about some of the neat changes that have and will take place at our schools, please look for more information in the coming weeks around virtual tours, virtual visits, and our new online registration capabilities. We are excited about some of our blended learning models, choice options for students and family environments on our campuses. This pandemic has given us an opportunity to retool our organization a bit And I invite all of you to visit our website around May 11th for more updated information. Now finally, our seniors, our graduates, they are looking forward to graduation, and frankly, so are we. We met with some of our graduating senior representatives today, and will meet with a district committee tomorrow. Please know, we will do whatever we can to salvage that special moment for our graduates in Granville County Public Schools. There is a parent and a student survey circulating at this time, and I encourage our graduates and their parents to please complete it. We need that information to help us best determine what is important in our community. In this spirit, a district-wide recommendation will come forth as soon as the governor's orders are relaxed. It will be at that point we will have more definitive information to share. Now, I would be remiss this evening if I did not take time tonight to wish all of the mothers, the surrogate mothers, grandmothers, aunties, and anyone who serves as a mother figure a happy early Mother's Day. We know this will take place on Sunday, but we know all that you do, and in our district, we appreciate you. But for now, everyone, please stay safe. Please continue to honor social distancing so that our state might move towards getting back to some sense of normalcy when it is safe to do so. And know that we look forward to the day we can all safely return. Please have a wonderful evening. Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Board members, do you have reports?
I had a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Mr. Rivers?
Yes, we had exchanged some emails today regarding my request for a work session to discuss our financial crisis. Did you want to try to address that somehow tonight? I would like to try and get something done if possible before the June meeting. Were you planning to discuss that at all tonight?
It was not on the agenda to discuss tonight, but we were trying to work it out to see whether it would be March's work session or June's board meeting. Yes, sir.
Okay. You mean May's work session?
I'm sorry, yes. Yes, May.
Okay. All right, so just have it as a part of the normal work session in May.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's probably better than the June meeting, as I said in my email.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Do any of our committees have reports? Okay. If not, I'd like to give you a quick update from the chair. Good evening, fellow board members, the executive staff, and those who are participating with our meeting remotely. We're going to take a few moments to update you on a few items. On board docs, you have seen a letter that was sent from the North Carolina School Boards Association, the Association of County Commissioners, the North Carolina League of Municipalities, and the North Carolina Sheriff's Association. This letter, sent on our behalf from the School Boards Association, has asked that our local legislators make their response to the COVID-19 pandemic priority number one when they return to Raleigh this past week. As you may have heard by now, the General Assembly passed several measures this weekend to send to the governor's desk in order to continue to offer support in a variety of capacities to our local governments. You will hear tonight how some of that is already being played out across our own district through plans academically, operationally, and financially. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the board, the superintendent, and educators and staff across the district for continuing to put your best foot forward in keeping children at the forefront especially during the last several weeks of a changing landscape in education. Today kicked off one of my favorite weeks during the year, Teacher Appreciation Week. I can think back to educators I've had in my own life and how they shaped my education, my career, and my life. I would encourage you to take the opportunity to thank educators you may come in contact with this week, or perhaps Even reach out to that one specific educator who took extra time with you and encouraged and challenged you to be the very best that you could be and can be. Again, thank you for all of your hard work and diligence, and it's not gone unnoticed. To the educators who do not feel like they're getting as much done as they should, to the educators who are probably teaching 30 kids online each day and perhaps helping their own at home as well, to those who haven't quite mastered the Zoom meeting yet, and to those who have become online rock star educators, to those who probably still need to plan dinner, switch the clothes in the dryer, and those who are doing their absolute best, even when it doesn't feel like it's enough. We see you, we believe in you, and we know that you are changing the world. And I, on behalf of the board, just want to thank you for that opportunity to support you for Teacher Appreciation Week. All right. Board members, any further comments before we move into the rest of our board meeting? All right. So our first thing tonight is we'll get a COVID-19 update from our executive staff. Dr. McLean, if you'll start us with that.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I needed to unmute. On Saturday, May 2nd, the House and the Senate voted to approve two pieces of COVID-19 legislation. They were signed into session law by Governor Cooper earlier today. We have House Bill 1043, 2020 COVID-19 Recovery Act, Session Law 4, and Senate Bill 704, COVID-19 Recovery Act, Session Law 2020-3. I forwarded immediately before this meeting, everyone, a document from the North Carolina School Boards Association. It is their update, which I believe provides specifics to what was signed today by the governor. What I will share with you just in brief tonight is everything requires a little attention, and our staff is going to address three areas tonight: academically, operationally, and financially, and then Attorney Dubison will end us with the legal updates. We will have some work to do with our calendar. We will have some work to do with regard to our devices and the funding, making certain we're spending that appropriately and out of what pots. And if there's some things such as the thermometers we've talked about purchasing for our schools, just as we prepare ahead and think ahead, just wanted you to know some of the work we're doing in each of those areas. The funding is very specific. The information does not have a lot of wiggle room. For example, the dollars, as you'll find and read, can be spent on very specific things like child nutrition, internet improvement with Wi-Fi on buses, improvements for connectivity, purchases of electronic devices, cybersecurity, remote instruction, and more. It's very specific. So without taking a lot of time just exploring it, I did forward that document from the School Boards Association to you once again. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over first to Dr. Myrick for an academic update. Dr. Myrick?
Thank you, Dr. McLean. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
We see you right now, dear.
Okay, you can't see my screen, however. Okay, here we go. There you go. You should be able to see it now. It's coming up.
It's circulating.
We can see it. We're good.
Okay, all right. So good evening, Chair Richardson and board members. I'm going to start out this evening with my updates, starting with our Chromebooks. As you know, we were able to distribute Chromebooks to our 4th and 5th grade students earlier during this pandemic. We are now in the process of trying to make sure that we have devices in the hands of our 3rd graders. Maybe not for this year, but for the coming year, because starting next year, all testing will be online. And so our 3rd graders in the past have been doing their tests, math and reading, paper and pencil, but starting in the fall, we hope to have those students up and ready with the devices in third grade as well. And more about this will be coming up later in the presentation. Ms. Beth Day and Gwen Lofton will have a formal presentation about the devices that we need going forward for our third grade students. We're going to move now to two documents that you have in board docs. One is the frequently asked questions grading for graduating seniors, class of 2020. This is a document that was shared with us from the Department of Construction. I would not go over this document. I will talk a little bit about the grading for graduating seniors during the presentation portion. A similar document is also available for our students in grades K through 11. This document also was made available by the Department of Public Instruction, and that document there is for your perusal as well. And I would not go through that document because the presentation that I'm going to do here will cover that document. So, switching quickly over to the updates that I'm sure that all of you are very, very interested in this evening about grading. I included the entire presentation in the public instruction that we received last week, but I will start with this slide on the primary recommendation. Everything before is very important about how they came to the decision that they've made in terms of grading, the committees and the input from various entities around the state in public education. But here, this time of uncertainty, the State Board of Education approved the following policies as statewide guidance for grading of North Carolina's public schools in grades K through 11. In grades K through 5, the focus is on providing feedback, not formal grades, and supporting students for success. Students in grades K-5 will not receive a grade on their report card. Instead, they will receive mental feedback that will be used as they go on to their next grade in elementary school or up to middle school. We are currently working on the procedure now of what that will look like for our district and what the remarks will look like, comments will look like for our students. We do know that a copy of the comments will be held along with student records at the school, as well as the parents will receive a copy of the comments that the students will receive, and then there will be additional documentation that the teachers will have so that they inform their classroom practices. And the primary things that the teachers will be responsible for documenting is on this last bullet: student strengths and needs from both an academic and social emotional perspective to ensure an effective transition. And the social emotional piece is very important during this pandemic, because as you have seen on television and heard on radio, read in several journals and so forth, the social emotional toll can be just as devastating for children as it is for adults during this time of being at home and away from peers, especially during their formative years. Our grading policy in 6th through 8 is similar to our grading in elementary school. The biggest difference: middle school students will receive a PC-19, a pass the class, or WC-19 as the final course grade for their middle school courses. The PC-19 will be assigned to any student who was meeting grade level expectations through the year as determined by March the 13th. A WC-19 will be assigned to any student who is not meeting expectations throughout the year. And the student's grade will be held harmless for learning as of March the 13th. And the WC-19 does not necessarily mean that a student has failed the class. It just means that they were not ready. And I will talk about that a little more in the presentation. But I will say that in terms of students being retained at any grade level, there has to have been some communication prior to March 13th, letting the parents know that those students were in jeopardy of being retained at the end of the school year. To go on with grades 6 through 8, WC19 again does not equate to failing the course or the need for retention. Teachers will document individual students' strengths and needs from both an academic and social-emotional perspective to ensure an effective transition that is very similar to what is going to be required of our elementary students. A grading policy continues for 6 through 8. If students are taking high school courses for credit, such as Math 1, Math 2, English 1, World History, or Earth Environmental Science, they will receive the same grading options as the students in grades 9 through 11, which I will go over next. Students will have the choice for PC19 or WC19 grade for the spring semester. Per state board policy, numeric grades for high school courses taken in middle school will not be calculated in the high school GPA. This next section gets a little tricky for all of us, and so we're going to be watching it closely and coming up with a plan that will help our principals as well as our teachers and our parents and students make the best choice. Students will be given a choice of how each final course grade will appear on the transcript for both year-long and semester courses currently in progress. Students will have two options. They will have the option of having a numeric grade, either the highest grade representing learning as of March 13th, or as improved through the semester through remote learning. Or the students may take a PC19 or a WC19. The students will determine how their final course grade will appear on their transcript at the end of the semester after advising with the teacher, the school, and in consultation with their parent and guardian. This will be done at the end of the academic school year. Students can choose different options by course. For example, if a student is taking 4 courses, they will have the option of either taking PC19 for all of those courses or having a numerical grade that will be counted in their GPA for all of those courses, or they may only decide they only want one of the courses that they are taking to receive that numerical grade. It will be completely up to the students, the parents, and after they consult with the teacher and the school, how they would do that. And if students are unreachable, they will be automatically assigned a PC19 at the end of the school year. And the students will have the option within the first 45 days of the new school year to provide to have the opportunity to receive a numeric grade option. So they are leaving it open for the first quarter of the school year for those students who have that opportunity. Continuing on, students who choose to report the numeric grade, it will be calculated in their GPA. There is no impact on the GPA when using PC19 or WC19. And if a student chooses either PC19 or WC19 for the spring semester of the year-long course, the fall term store grade will be counted in the GPA. We do have some year-long courses in our district. The courses, most of the classes at Granville Early College are year-long, and then we have some year-long courses in our traditional high schools as well. So they're actually all of our schools. And the grading policy continue. PC19 awards full credit, a full unit of credit. WC19 does not. Again, WC19 does not indicate that a student was failing, rather a lack of evidence or mastery of standards. And students would not receive a failing grade. If a student was failing prior to March 13th and was unable to improve, the school would be advised to use a WC19. And continue for 9 through 11, all options remain on the table for future use, including credit recovery and repeating the course of credit. And if we decide district to use an incomplete, we will have a time limit on the amount of time the student will have in order to get that information, those courses completed. Any questions about that before I go to just a quick overview of the seniors? Does anyone have a question?
This is Danny.
Yes, sir.
My question about the grading is not for the actual students yet, but it's two that parents have asked me. One is, how will this grading affect the student of merit from 6 and up? And the second one is the honorary society from the 7th grade up. They're concerned that this is going to affect them in some way. Have y'all looked at that?
We are talking about that. One of the pieces that we're talking about is where the student ended up at the third quarter of the school year. That was the prior to the March the 12th, or looking at what the student had done at the end of first semester. That is something that we are discussing in relationship to student of merit, as well as with the National Honor Society at the middle school and high school.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So really quickly, because we have been over this before, basically for the graduating seniors, the OC required with a 22 credit minimum that the state has determined, meaning that there are 22 credits that the students are required to have in order to be considered graduates of a North Carolina high school. All seniors will receive either EC-19 or WC-19 on their transcripts. They would not have the option of choosing the grade that would go on their transcript. The grading policy did not change for the seniors from where it was at the beginning of the semester. All seniors are required to have a CPR requirement. However, that is being waived this year. And just before we shut down, we reviewed the number of students who needed that CPR requirements, and the only students in our district that we found who needed it were students who had transferred in from other districts or from a different state. Most of our students receive the CPR, meet the CPR requirement in their middle school health and physical education classes. Our occupational course of study students, teachers are working with those students and principals and working with those students to make sure that they are able to complete those 157 hours. There is guidance on how to do that if the student was not able to maintain their jobs. Okay, and the last slide just talks a little bit about the promotion and the retention and how it still remained the decision of the school principal and the staff. And the last two bullets there is just some recommendations from the department of what to do in the event that students are retained. They recommend that districts only consider retention of students if the retention consideration was already well underway prior to March 13, and that there was well-documented communication with the student's family discussing the possibility of retention prior to that date. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none, Mr. Chair, yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Dr. Winborn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members. Dr. McLean. I do not have any presentations to show, but I'm going to give some brief descriptions and updates from each of my departments in operations. For child nutrition, again, as Dr. McLean said at the top, have done an amazing job. They continue to increase the numbers of meals provided. Last week, they provided over 36,000 meals to our students. It's important to remember that this week is the first week that we will be shifting to 1 day a week, and that will actually, although it's a reduction in the number of days that we're serving meals, it will be an increase in the number of meals that are being provided. In each large packet will be 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches with a menu and directions for families on how to care and serve the food. We've also been working closely with our local health inspector on developing this menu and making sure that we're compliant with all of the food safety regulations and laws. So big hats off to our child nutrition team who continue to do a wonderful job. Maintenance, we continue with 2 large roofing projects that are underway right now at Creedmoor Elementary and JF Webb. Both are on schedule and within budget, I'm happy to say, as of the latest inspections and reports from our engineers. We are starting the conversion from heat to air conditioning on all of our campuses. We've had to do a short pause in the cleaning of our floors. When we clean the floors in our schools, it creates a lot of extra humidity in the buildings, even though we are using some new low moisture scrubbing machines. But we are trying to be very mindful of keeping our humidity levels low in our schools as to avoid any air quality issues. Also, we have our annual spring air quality tests that will begin in the next week, and all of our campuses will be tested. And those third-party inspections will be done on random locations throughout the school. That'll be air and some surface samples as well. Transportation, we continue to support the efforts with child nutrition there. We will start to move our fleet of buses back to the central office since we now have confirmation that we will not be needing them to transport students to school this year. We will keep, I think, about 26 of them in service for our meals. And of course, we do have to keep all of our 30-day inspections current on our fleet. Finally, with regard to human resources, there are some official items on the agenda tonight, but the only one that's not listed is an update for the board that the State Board of Education extended the emergency state leave for COVID-19 for all staff through May 31st. And that was had scheduled to end at the end of April. And so they renewed that for the month of May. So anyone that was approved previously for the emergency state leave was automatically extended for the remainder of this month. There's also the federal leave that is still in effect through the end of December, which some employees may be eligible for as well. And that's the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, affectionately referred to as FRCA, is the other leave that's available. So that concludes my updates, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I have a question, Dr. Winborn.
Yes, sir.
You said last week we gave out we handed out 36,000 meals. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It was 17,788 lunches and the same number of breakfasts.
So are we doing 7 days a week or just 5 days a week?
So last week we had our drive-through and door-to-door delivery service on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And on each of those days we were delivering 2 lunches and 2 breakfasts. So we did a total of 6 lunches and 6 breakfasts. This week we're going to move to 1 day of delivery and drive-through, and we'll have 7 lunches and 7 breakfasts.
Okay, so that, just doing the math, that's 14 meals. Well, out of 36,000, that's about 2,571 students. Have we correlated that with the number of students who are on the free and reduced lunch program prior to the COVID break? Are we about in line with what we were doing before as far as numbers?
Well, by my just rough math, we're actually doing a little less because our free and reduced lunch rate is about 64%, somewhere around 2/3 of the district. So 2/3 of 7,500 students is
5,000.
Yeah, a little less than 5,000. So we're, I don't know. I believe it's a little less.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions for Dr. Winborn? All right, thank you, sir, and thank you, your team.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Day, Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson and board members. In board docs, you have a CARES Act overview. You'd received one at a prior meeting, but I think DBI had made an update, so I included that. And Dr. McLean mentioned that she sent out the email with the information about the funds that were allocated over the weekend. I'll just point to the fact that if you look at these funds, that first page, scroll about halfway down, the $396 million in emergency relief fund, that's for the state of North Carolina. That same number is referenced in the document that Dr. McLean sent out. So this is the work that was done over the weekend was allocating these funds and specifically how that was going to be allocated. If you'll just go to the next page towards the bottom, the other portion of these funds right here, the governor's emergency education relief funds, 95 million, 95.6 million, that is also referenced in that document that Dr. McLean sent. So I just want to point out that that's the allocation of these CARES funds that we have talked about. I'll probably learn more. I have a DPI update tomorrow. We have a weekly update, but one thing that they've said previously are that these funds will probably be available to us around the beginning of June. So I don't know if there'll be any different update on that, but I just want to keep that in mind. So that is basically my update for on the finance side. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Ms. Day, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
On the CARES Act, and I was trying to look through that over the weekend, is it my understanding that, and this could be a dumb question, do we have, what sort of flexibility do we have in that money once we find out how much we're going to get? Is that all allocated already to different pots, or do we have some discretion over that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And part of what has been allocated over the weekend, I think, is, describing what the specific can be spent on. This amount is for devices. This amount is for, very specific items. Child nutrition. This is for that kind of thing. So I think that we will learn more how to integrate. This is very new that this just got signed by the governor today, but how that will affect and what we can use those funds for. But it will be very specific. I mean, we already know that there are certain categories that it'll be able to be used for, but just what are the dollars associated with those particular categories is what we're hoping to find out soon.
Along the same lines of that question, are you able to tell us tonight, have we incurred any additional unbudgeted or unplanned expenses as a result of COVID-19 that would come out of our local funds? Or are we, and I'm sure you're going to get that in your budget brief, but are we right on track on our budget, or have we had to dip into it, or do we have excess? Are you going to be able to discuss that?
Yeah, during my financial update, we're looking at that as far as where we are in comparison to the percentage of the budget that has been spent. I think we have had additional expenditures associated with COVID-19, but we also have some expenditures we won't have because of COVID-19 for the rest of the year. So, I don't have a specific information for you tonight.
And where I'm going with that is it would seem obvious to me that our transportation costs would be less because we're not sending our buses every day. So do we have the flexibility to take, let's say we have a couple $100,000 that we don't spend on buses for transportation. do we have the flexibility to take that money and put it towards school social workers or instructional coaches or any other priorities we have? Are we going to be able to move pots of money around to take care of needs we have that this freed up money may help us with?
I think that's a great question, Mr. Rivers. And in the email that Dr. McLean sent out, one of the things at the end of the email, the items that weren't included in the legislation, one of the things was budget flexibility that was not included. So I'm not sure. I was really hopeful that they would allow us some flexibility with remaining funds for this year, but it hasn't happened yet.
All right, thank you. And I'm assuming we'll probably get that hot off the press as soon as any decision is made.
Yes, you will.
Okay, great. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to add just a little bit to that, if I may, Ms. Day. And this is just a little caution whenever we have a year like this, if I may. We want to, I'll say, Mr. Rivers, I was sort of like you with the superintendents who fought and the organizations who fought for flexibility. We were really hoping to see it, and Ms. Day is correct, we did not see it in there. But one of the dangers also of it is sustainability. If you're giving that flexibility this year, the question would be, so where would the funds come in remaining years for those individuals in those positions? And so I get that as well. I just put that out there because certainly when we get individuals on board and we get accustomed to that standard, we want to keep it. We want to keep it. So I just put that out.
Very good point. Thank you.
Sure thing. So those are the three, and now we have a legal piece, Mr. Richardson, if that's all right with Ms. Peterson.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, board members. It's good to see you tonight. I did want to give a couple of updates on the COVID relief legislation that passed on Saturday and was signed today. Obviously, this is based on my first read of it, but there are some elements that will require follow-up from this board in future meetings. My office is putting this together in writing, and we will send it out in a few days. But in the meantime, wanted to sort of highlight a couple things for you. One, obviously, there's a lot of provisions in this legislation about the school calendar, and it does say that if you provided remote learning, which is defined pretty broadly and includes, not just through technology but through written packets, then you have to continue. The school clarifies that you have to continue to provide it through the end of your scheduled school year, which Granville was certainly planning to do. And then, your instructional time obligations for this year will have been fulfilled. But there's a lot of changes that will affect your calendar for next year, and you are going to have to adopt a new calendar for next year at a future meeting. One is that there is now an intentional inclusion in the calendar of remote instruction, and I'll talk in a minute about how districts are supposed to plan for that. Next year's calendar will include 5 remote instruction days that are scheduled. And my understanding from just talking to, the government relations folks at the School Board Association is the idea behind this is we're going to have in the future a plan for if schools shut down, and this is how we're going to practice our plan. So there will be at least 5 intentional remote instruction days next year, during which you will practice your plan for remote instruction. And then if there is a state of emergency or disaster that closes school for more than 5 days next year, and you provide remote instruction according to the remote instruction plan, then you can count those towards your instructional days. So the idea is that in the future, when we have major shutdowns, which could also be for weather, for a hurricane, that we will be prepared to provide remote instruction, and that if we are able to carry that out, that you will not necessarily have to have as many makeup days. The other thing is that school can start a week earlier next year, August 17th, and the additional 5 days that they've added to let you start on August 17th, it does specify have to be full days not, they don't count towards, you can't count them as hours. So you have to meet the usual 185 days or 1,025 hours plus 5 full days, which sounds more complicated than it is. It just means that extra week needs to be provided in full. The other thing, though, about calendars that was sort of slipped into this bill is a definition of year-round schools. And you may recall that we discussed before, previously that was not defined in our calendar law, and therefore Granville and many other districts adopted what was termed an innovative year-round calendar, declaring that all of your schools are year-round. And with this relief bill, the legislature has taken away that ability to do that. They have defined year-round schools very specifically to either be 9 weeks of instruction or 45 days of instruction, 15 days off, or some other, there's 3 or 4 different modes, but all of them are true year-round calendars that are not similar to sort of the innovative year-round schedule that you adopted. So all of that is to say there will be a new calendar discussion for you to have in coming meetings. And I mentioned that there's going to be intentional remote instruction days next year. A big chunk of this law is devoted to what's going to happen with remote instruction for next year, requiring that districts have a written remote instruction plan. And it's very detailed. There are 13 required elements, and districts have to have this done by July 2nd to be ready for next year. And so, and it involves some training, some surveys to determine what resources people in your community have. But the upshot is that the idea is in the future, if something like this happens, we're ready, and we go straight to the plan and everybody knows what to expect. A few minor things, I mean, not minor, but sort of shorter. Well, actually, let me pause and take questions before I do the last few things. Any questions about the calendars and the remote learning days? Okay, a few other things I want to highlight. The legislature has clarified, that there's no end-of-year assessments this year. The Read to Achieve program, where normally you have the system of assessment and retention prior to 3rd grade, those retentions will not happen. Retentions will be on principal discretion, and Dr. Myrick talked about that a little more. But when school reopens during the first 10 days, school districts are going to have to give 4th graders the end-of-year reading assessment that 3rd graders were supposed to get this year, and then use that information to drive instruction to the 4th graders and with the idea of catching them up. There will be no school report cards this year, no school accountability grades, and no identification of low-performing schools. So all of that, there will be, it says all of the public notices will just be replaced with a statement that those were not issued this year due to COVID-19. And I believe that you, Dr. McLean, am I correct that they have seen also some email information about special education?
I sent something this afternoon that we received because there was some language going around that I thought was very interesting, and I just wanted the board to be aware. Can you talk briefly about that?
Absolutely. So some parent advocates are sort of gearing up. They have sent an open letter to the state, all the members of the state board, arguing about what students with disabilities are owed when school is closed, and disagreeing with the guidance that DPI has provided. They've also been sending out guidance to parents, sort of guiding them to log all the services that they get in hopes of advocating for compensatory services later. And of course, I know that your teachers are already logging all the services they provide, and I've certainly spoken to your EC director at length about that. I just want to note that I don't, while we don't know exactly how this is going to shake out, my perspective is, and this special education law is probably 60% of what I do in general, what our obligations are to students with disabilities has always been defined in relation to the circumstances of the individual student as well as the external circumstances and to what is being provided to non-disabled students. And so that, I believe, will continue to be the case. I think there are fears that everything that is in a child's IEP that wasn't provided because school was closed is going to have to be made up in the future. I don't think those fears are well-founded. That doesn't mean that we won't have to provide additional special education services next year to help some of these kids or close some gaps. But it's going to have to be an individualized discussion of where the children are when they come back and what they need. Anything else you'd like me to hit about that, Dr. McLean?
I don't think so right now. I am interested if our board member has any questions. I know that was sort of new today, and I don't even know if our board members have had an opportunity to read what I sent you. But do you all have any questions about that? We're really just at the beginning stages of that work, but we'll be happy to take questions. Okay. All right. I probably will end up including that on the work session so that we can just keep our board updated, if that's okay, Eva.
Great.
Board members, any further questions for the attorney or Dr. McLean? All right, thank you so much. All right, now we move to 7.02, strategic plan update. Dr. McLean?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Board members, we shared this with you. You're probably exhausted and tired of looking at this document. We had Dr. Angela Quick and staff from RTI to come and assist us the first year with this document. Some of you were involved in that process that year. This year, we started our summer with this work, and we've ended the year by meeting. Some of you were with us at the Masonic Home for Children as we tried to put 5-year statistics and keeping the end in mind of where we want it to be. If you go to page 8 in that document, that's probably what interested you the most because that is the newest. Yes, that page sort of turned to the side. There have been so many eyeballs on this. I don't know if there are any questions or not. Let's just do that. Let's just see if there are any questions. The academic team, the financial team, Dr. Winborn and his team have all been involved. Some of you assisted, and we really appreciate your guidance and your help with that. Are there any questions? This is looking 5 years out. But as you just heard, we may have to go back to the drawing board as a board and as leadership of the district because I don't know exactly where we're going to go because now we have a year where there will be no report card grades stored, and there will be no guidance there in terms of a number. So we have to see what the measure will be, and we will probably take time to come back and to revisit that one section in academic. The other areas, I don't see that we need to address or make any changes. We ought to move right along, propel forward. Work Keys is already moving along with changing their assessment. And we're not certain what the outcome will be with that assessment, but we know the type of assessment will be very different. There is potential that the state assessment could be different. We're not certain. What we're working on at this point is getting those devices, and the decision has been made that even our third graders will be assessed online. So there are some things that could change, but for now, this is the document that came out of the work last year and this year. And so we have a complete document now. I wanted to share it with our board.
Dr. McLean, quick question.
Yes,
if I could, with the academic stuff, is there going to be any kind of assessment in the fall of the year? In other words, I picked up or heard a little bit about that, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. But the point is, in terms of assessment, will kids go to school? Is it possible that children will go to school for a while, and now it looks like they're going to go in August? And then I'm just curious if there would be some kind of an assessment in the fall, or have you heard any talk about that?
We've heard, the one definitive I've heard is what Attorney Davis had mentioned with fourth graders. That is the one I can say is certainly going to happen at the beginning of fourth grade. The rumor mill has run rampant with all kinds of things right now, but I haven't heard.
In other words, who knows at this point?
Who knows? I think people are trying to figure out. I think what they're finding is it's difficult to measure because they're not certain who had access to what.
Yeah, and that's true.
And it is true. But that's just been the difficulty in that conversation.
Okay, thanks.
Yes,
Dr. McLean, with what you just said, do we as a district have a handle on who had access and who didn't, and who was doing paper versus online? Is that something that kind of we will see later on, or y'all will use to be able to determine what gaps there were?
I think we have an idea. Let me tell you why I say that. We have an idea in 4th and 5th grade, and I believe Gwen Lofton is still on the line with Dr. Myrick. We have an idea with 4th and 5th grade because that was the grade where we had a device that was ready for pickup, and about 20% of the devices were not picked up. So from there, you start drawing. Okay, thank you, Gwen is saying that is correct. From there, you begin to draw conclusions around, did the youngsters not have access to internet? Did they need hotspots to come with the device? You know, the district had about 7 hotspots, so we know that's a deficit in the district. So when we looked at some of this emergency relief money, we know we're interested in getting hotspots and MiFis, or I think it was Khajiits. We've looked at several things because clearly just from that one project, we had several devices not picked up. We don't have any devices in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, so we have 3rd on the way. They've been ordered, but because everyone in the country is ordering, they're on back order. So I don't really have a number there, but it would have been interesting to see how many of those laid at rest and didn't get picked up, because that would have been a good indicator. So we have some qualitative, I think, information and assumptions. What we do know is that we have several families in our community who've taken advantage of going to the school, to the property, taken advantage of being able to use the property access, and they've been most appreciative. It's a ride out, and when they get there, they're able to do what they can on the devices they have, whether it's their cell phone or a Chromebook or a laptop, whatever device they have. But a survey is going out. We're going to have survey information for you. Dr. Myrick, is that going to be in June? I know we're surveying right now. We've surveyed one group, but we're surveying, Dr. Myrick.
Yes, we have surveyed the teachers, and we have a survey going out tonight to our parents and our students. And we will have the survey data available if we have a board meeting a work session in May, or you definitely know it will be ready for presentation in June.
Very good. So we will have that data for you, because we need to know, but we have certainly determined remote access is an issue in our community. We've done more packets than one could imagine. And so we are one of those districts where it was very difficult. You know, we had those that said they had access, but give me a packet just in case. That means the access was not as strong or as positive as they thought, and parents just wanted to make sure they had what the youngsters needed. So we did a lot of paper. We did a lot of ordering of paper to make sure the children had what they needed. But that survey should, like Dr. Mark said, we'll have that information for you soon.
Board members, other questions?
Yes, I have a question for Dr. McLean.
Yes, sir.
Actually, it's a couple of questions. Number one, the strategic plan is 18 through 23. Since 2018, some things have changed, and so some of the things in the strategic plan are obsolete. is this going to be a document that we're going to upgrade every year? Because there's some things that really need to be changed. For instance, in your introductory letter, which was obviously from 2018, you referred to our Board of Education approved the creation of new options for families through our year-round calendar, which we have since canceled. Further, we're proud we have no F schools and all. So, I mean, things changed in that. And I don't know what the answer is, so I'm asking you, do we want to do like a yearly update? I mean, a lot of strategic plans, they're 5 years, but every year you say, okay, this is what we've learned in the first year, and we're readjusting our goals or whatever. So is this a living document?
It's a living document. That's exactly right. Especially my letter. You know, when we make changes as a board and leadership throughout the course of the year, we sort of note that, and then when the new letter comes out the following year, you'll see changes in that. But
so there'll be a new letter coming out.
Yes, sir. And that letter, if you compare it to the year before, is even different from the year before when they're compared. For that reason. But I'd like to think that once we learn more about this COVID-19 and how youngsters are going to re-enter school, to be very honest with you, board members, re-entry is the new thing. But the question is, so how are our students going to re-enter? You know, there's one thing for us to be in the state we're in. We don't want to forget, we can't get too relaxed, but right now we still can't congregate in more than groups of 10 right now. We are still under governor's orders where we cannot come together in large groups. So it's very difficult, in talking with our student graduates to come together. And just to give you a heads up, we're going to talk about that in a moment. And nor do they want anything small. They worked hard for this, so you'll hear a little more about it. But the same thing with school. Social distancing. How will that look when we return? What will our students do? How large will classrooms be? Where will this virus take us? What will we need to do to keep students safe? All of those are very good questions as we talk about re-entry into school. So the same thing with this document. As we get more answers, I think it would behoove us to revisit it. I agree, it should be a living document each year where we come back and let's revisit. So what is prudent now? What is relevant now? And let's update it from year to year.
The other question I had is, there's very much to like about this document. And what, to me, the strong suit of this document is it has very, very well laid out and defined metrics, goals and metrics, how you would determine the goals you've established by fulfilling those metrics. Where I think the document falls short is it doesn't provide a plan in many cases as to how to accomplish that. Mm-hmm. And for example, under academic success, if you look at core curriculum, provide a research-based engaging curriculum that aligns, et cetera, support teachers in aligning instruction and expectations to the curriculum. Well, clearly that's where more instructional coaches would be a how-to. How do we get that aligning in the instruction, improving the instruction? Similarly, on the course offerings, because of our budget, it's very difficult for us to offer the electives that we would like to offer. So I don't think that the how-to is being reflected in that, and in the whole child support. As long as we're short on social workers, we're going to have a difficult time with the whole child support. So it seems to me that the strategic plan, if we craft it a little bit, modify it or massage it, and put in, that the way to do this is through these, different strategies involving more instructional coaches, more social workers, more electives, that I think gives us more ammunition when we go to the county commissioners for money. If we say we've got a very good plan, but in order to implement it, we have to be able to afford to do this. And it gives us, I think, a better opportunity for us as a district to say, this is what's important, so we've got to find the money for it. So I guess my question is, there's some things that I would like to and others may or may not, but I would like to see changed So I'm just wondering, if we are set up where we do a yearly kind of tweak, or is that your vision that we do that? And you're talking about obviously a new letter and all that when school starts?
Well, if you go back to this page, the page with all of the numbers, this is sort of the short and dirty. It's around page 8.
Right.
You can see under academic success, the category for academic success, sort of middle of that pack there, increased number of instructional specialist coaches for district to 10. And you'll see over time, we're going to eventually get there. But it is over time. It's not overnight, but we'll see it over time. And under health and safety, you'll see increased number of district social workers, and you'll see it over time going up.
Great.
But you'll find, though, in the literature, and what you just read was this realization of a reality check of the money, the funds of where we are, not stopping the work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that language came from. We may not have it, but it does not mean, my goodness, we're going to stop doing what needs to be done in order to work our buns off to achieve what needs to be done for children.
Great.
So you have some hard numbers here that we'd like to be able to show people. And honestly, you're right, it could have been over time, but in the next 5 years, we ought to get there. We really ought to get there.
I hope so.
So that you'll see that language there in the grid.
I'm doing
Dr. McLean.
Fight for it for you.
Dr. McLean, am I correct that board members had 3 or 4 opportunities to be a part of this work?
Oh, goodness, yes. Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Any further questions about the strategic plan? All right. Thank you, Dr. McLean and your team.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate it. This is an action item tonight. Districts should have a living strategic plan, so I do come to you for action this evening.
Okay. Board members, you have seen the document, been a part of some of the creation of it, and so this is coming to you as an item to act on tonight. And so what would be the pleasure of the board tonight?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
this is Bill Kingside, make a motion we approve the strategic plan as presented.
Okay. And so we have a motion to approve the strategic plan as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. So we have a motion by Mr. Peace and a second by Dr. Houlihan. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
You made a comment a minute ago that board members had an opportunity to weigh in on this. I was at, I don't even think I was on the board yet when I attended the first time back in 2018. But what I'm saying now, Mr. Richardson, is things have changed, and the meeting that I attended at the Oxford Orphanage cafeteria, I think it was. It wasn't an opportunity to really draft or I didn't feel that I could do that. So I guess what I'm asking is if we make this a more formalized way for the board to be involved, I would appreciate that. Just to make sure that the wording is reflecting what our consensus is. And so that would be my only question, is that the strategic plan, I think, has some deficiencies right now, and it could stand to be updated. So my ultimate question is, when do we next update this? Is it going to be in the fall when we go back to school? Is that the plan?
It is typically upgraded at the beginning of a year. The difficulty with that is we're bringing this to you in the midst of, going to be honest, when we don't have a lot of answers. And as you've said, I think we need some answers when we come to you the next time with this. If you recall, though, I think you were with me this summer, though. Frankly, I think, you had an emergency call and had to leave that meeting when we had our business sector with us here in the boardroom. That was that was one of the meetings.
Right.
We intended on being with.
And we had Dr. Quick come and work with the board, and we also had us at the Expo Center.
That's right. So it's been a work in progress for a while. But
Okay.
yes, I'd be happy to bring it back to you, but I really would like to do it when we have more meaningful information. And right now, I just don't have anything.
No, I agree. Thank you.
Any further discussion, board? All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Peace and a second by Dr. Houlihan to approve the plan as presented. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Okay. All right, so that passes 6-0. Thank you, Dr. McLean.
I thank all of you.
All right, so next we move into a series of first reads for several policies. The first section will be presented by Dr. Myrick as it relates to curriculum instruction. Dr. Myrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 14 policies there. I think it may be best if I ask if there is a specific question about any of the policies. All of the policies are recommended or required updates from the School Boards Association, who manages our board policy manual for us. I should say highly recommended or required.
Okay, board members, these are on board docs. Yes, Mr. Rivers?
I'm sorry. I just the point for the future, we got board docs, what was on Friday. I spent many hours this weekend trying to read all of these. I'd like to ask in the future that we not get so many at once. That just was a huge mouthful to swallow in one weekend.
I believe these come down from the School Board Association in a lump like that, and that's why we do them over 2 reads.
All right, thank you.
All right. Board members, any questions about these? This is coming to you as a first read. There does not need to be action tonight unless you decide you want to waive that policy. If you don't, then this will be brought back to you again at the June board meeting for action.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes, Mr. Udy?
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the first read.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to waive the first read for the curriculum and instruction policies. Do I have a second for that? I'm sorry, there was some interference there. Do I have a second for that motion? Okay. All right, hearing no seconds, that motion fails.
Richardson, I kept hearing that noise in the background. I didn't know if somebody was doing anything or not. I want to make a second to the motion.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So we have a motion to waive the first reading, motion by Mr. Udy, and a second by Dr. Houlihan. Attorney, am I correct that this requires a 2/3 vote?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, all right, so we will do a roll call. Again, the motion is to waive the first reading. This will come in 2 parts, so the first motion will be to waive the second reading, and then we'll bring the policies to you to act upon. So for the first part,
Are you going to ask for comments first?
yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I oppose the first read. I really spent a long time trying to read these, and I frankly, towards the bottom, 4 or 5, I had to kind of skim through them. I just think it's too much to do in just, in just one weekend's time. I'd like more time to look them over. So I request that we maintain the first read and follow the normal process, unless there's some critical reason why we need to rush this.
Okay. Board members, any other comments?
The only reason that I do this is because it has to mirror the state board, so it's not really much we could change in them.
And
Okay.
these policies actually come from the School Board Association, so not from the State Board of Education. So many of the changes are required, but hopefully it says that on the policy if it's required.
Okay. All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll do a roll call vote. Has Ms. Allred joined yet? Okay, Mr. Rivers? No. Dr. McKnight?
No.
Mr. Peace?
Yes.
Mr. Udy?
Yes.
Dr. Houlihan? Dr. Houlihan?
I'm sorry, I guess I have to unmute, don't I? Yes.
Okay, all right, so that, does that meet the limit, attorney?
You've got 3 yeses and I counted 3 yeses and 2 nos.
Yes.
So no, 3 yeses would be not a majority.
Okay, all right. So then this goes back to that this being a first read, and then we will take this back up at the June board meeting. All right, now,
Mr. Richardson, I'm sorry, I want to be clear. Not a majority of the full board, which is the requirement under policy. We either need 2/3 of those present or a majority of the full board.
I got you, okay. All right. We will now move to 7.04. These are more policies that come in the operational section of things. Dr. Winborn, if you want to speak to those.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, these are the same status of policies as Dr. Myrick's. They were all included in the School Board Association as highly recommended or required technical revisions to current policies. And this is the first reading.
Okay. Board members, you have seen and heard that you have those operational changes there. Again, this comes as a first read. You have a choice of either waiving the first read as you just attempted to for the last set of policies, or you can leave it as it remains and take it up at the June board meeting as well. Do I have any motions now? Okay. All right. Seeing none, then we will hold that for the June board meeting for a second read. All right, and now moving to 7.05, policy 7410, speaking about contracts, teacher contracts. Dr. Winborn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight, we are asking that the board waive the process as outlined in policy 7410, which sets up criteria for teachers to apply for 2- and 4-year contracts under Section C of teacher contract policy. Because of COVID-19, teachers are unable to satisfy some of the elements of determining what their contract length could be. The default for all teachers, if they are not recommended for non-renewal, is that the default is that they would receive 1 year contract extension. Teachers can apply for a 2-year contract or a 4-year contract if they meet the criteria as outlined in this policy. Because of COVID, though, we will not be able to have some of these measures. For example, some of our teachers, many of our teachers, in fact, will not get a final rating in their evaluation system. Additionally, because we don't have any test scores, we won't have a 3-year average in EVAS. Professional development has been disrupted. And so on and so forth. So a lot of the activities that our teachers are normally undertaking have been disrupted, and therefore it's difficult for us to judge how we would be able to award a 2 or 4 year contract. Just for a point of reference, that last year we had, let me see, it was less than 10 teachers out of all of our teachers, less than 10 applied for a 2 or 4 year contract. 4 of those were awarded a 2 year contract, and none were awarded a 4 year contract. So we're not talking about a lot. And our recommendation is that basically we would essentially hold teachers harmless. So if their 2 year contract were coming to an end this year, that we would renew them based on the length of their previous contract. So if their 2 year was up, we would offer them an additional 2 year.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Winburn. Do I have questions from the board?
Dr. Winburn, are you saying that the vast majority of our teachers, all but 10 or so, work on a year-to-year contract? Is that how they operate?
Yes, sir, with the exception of some teachers who have career status based on being grandfathered in to previous legislation and policy as it related to teacher contracts. But yes, the vast majority are now renewed on a year-to-year basis. And those were changes that were made. Those policies came out, I think, about 3.5 years ago. And Ms. Dudison may be able to speak a little more clearly to that if I'm misspeaking.
I have one other question.
Go ahead.
So on paragraph D, it says dismissal and non-renewal, and it says this policy is not intended to limit the superintendent's discretion to recommend dismissal, etc., on any basis. So even if a teacher has a 4 year contract and a teacher is not doing a good job, then the contract can be nullified by the superintendent. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
I'll take that one.
Thank you.
They can be dismissed during the term of their contract. It is not a short process. It involves the opportunity for a hearing, an evidentiary hearing, and for the teacher to challenge that. So dismissing a teacher during the term of their contract is possible, but they have a lot of due process protections. Whereas just not renewing a teacher's contract still involves some due process protections, but it is a less involved process.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then I guess, Dr. Wimber, why would we just not want to go with if it's only 10 teachers and everybody else is doing year-to-year contracts? I guess what am I missing here? Why are we doing this? Why don't we go to year-to-year for everybody?
Well, our recommendation that we basically hold teachers harmless and award them. So say I'm a teacher and my contract, my 2 year contract expires this year. I don't have the opportunity to apply for another 2 or 4 year contract through no fault of my own. It's not my fault that coronavirus came and took away all of the measurements that are included in this policy. So I guess it was our way of thinking that we give our best teachers the benefit of the doubt and simply allow those contracts to be renewed.
Okay, I understand. I'm just kind of having a hard time understanding if we've recommended and we've gone to year-to-year contracts. This may be the good time to kind of cut the cord and move to year-to-year for everybody.
And I think part of Mr. Rivers' question is why do we have this policy at all? And some of it comes, Mr. Rivers, from the history of when the legislature eliminated tenure, which was, I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago now, Stan, but in any case, time does fly. So this is kind of what they replaced it with. It is optional for school districts, but most districts adopted some form of the ability to compete for a longer contract, essentially as a recruiting and retention tool for the high-performing teachers. As Stan pointed out, it's not something that has been, we don't have masses of teachers who have been applying for it, and you have to have been there for a certain amount of time in any case. But that's sort of where it arose, is it didn't go from everybody has 1-year contracts to these extended contracts. It went from you could get a lifelong tenure to, when that was eliminated, it was replaced with this sort of competitive system.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any further questions, board members? Dr. McLean, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Board, this does come to us as an action item. It's being proposed that we waive the process for teachers to apply for 2- to 4-year contracts under this policy, and the administration's recommending renewing contracts based on the length of the teacher's previous contract. What is the pleasure of the board?
Some kind of meal bill going there. Something else.
Do we have a board member that would like to make that motion?
So moved.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. So we have a motion by Dr. McKnight and a second by Dr. Houlihan. Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah.
All right. We will do a roll call vote. Mr. Rivers?
Yeah, but how do you order them? I don't, there's no going like that.
We're going to do a roll call vote, so we'll go around the table. Mr. Rivers?
I don't know, I'll let you say that.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes?
Dr. McKnight?
Yes.
Mr. Peace?
Yes.
Mr. Udy?
Yes.
Dr. Houlihan?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, and so now we will move to 7.06. Dr. Wimborne and Dr. Myrick will talk about graduation planning.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. I will start off just quickly. Dr. McLean mentioned briefly in her comments this evening that she had met with the seniors. We've had 2 meetings now with a select group of seniors. Our principal nominated 2 students from each school to serve on a district graduation committee on the student side. And so we met with them today, and they shared with us what they have heard from their fellow classmates around what they want to do for graduation. We will bring that information to the district committee meeting tomorrow, and the district committee is made up of the high school principals, the graduate advisors of each high school. Teresa McCullum is on the committee as well, along with our SROs have been invited to join, as well as a representative from the health department has been invited to join the committee, and parents. Each school was asked to invite 2 parents to participate on the committee. So it's a rather large committee, but it is a very important work. One thing that was clear today from the students, they are not interested in a virtual graduation at all. They are just not interested in that. They want some form of graduation, whether it's a drive-through type of deal, or something that they feel like they have worked too hard and have done too much over their time in high school for it to be dismissed by doing it virtually. So we were very excited to hear them say that loud and clear today. Their representatives said that they had heard from all of their classmates on that. Also, we have a survey that has gone out to the parents and those graduating seniors, and that survey closes, I believe it's this Friday, and so we will have those results by the time we have the next district committee meeting. Dr. Wimborne?
Thank you, Mark. I don't have anything to add except, and Dr. McClain, I'm sure you're going to chime in, that they were emphatic They did not want a virtual graduation. If they had to wait a whole year, they would mark in some form or fashion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They spoke about waiting until July. They spoke about waiting our early college graduates who were supposed to graduate later this month, even spoke about if the governor had not relaxed any of the regulations in place by the time they were supposed to graduate, they wanted to get on the same cycle as all of the other high schools. That they did not want to do it just to say they had a graduation. They want something significant. And I told them, we hear you. Okay, we hear you. That's what I needed to know. And that's what most districts are doing. Dr. Winborn represents us every Friday morning on a 7:30 public information officer call, and superintendents can join. So I do sometimes, but he represents us on that call. And so we have this laundry spreadsheet of what districts are doing, and we're doing what most districts are doing. We hear what others are doing, but what is most important is, so what matters here? And that's what each district is trying to take time to learn about his or her community. What matters to our parents is what's going to be important to us. What matters to the students is what is going to be important to us. Now, what we've made very clear, though, is it has to be within the confines of what our governor has established at that moment. So we will probably have a game plan 1, game plan 2, and a game plan 3. But I'm sort of going to echo what Dr. Myrick has said. What those youngsters, those graduating seniors, said loud and clear to me today was, please do not belittle our moment by making it virtual. They made that loud and clear. So we will share that information with this district committee on tomorrow. Dr. Myrick, have you talked about our board representation on that committee?
No, I did not, but our board representation on the committee are members of the academic team from the board, Dr. Houlihan, Dr. McKnight, and Ms. Peace are our representatives, and they will be joining us on the call tomorrow.
So if you have ideas, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Go ahead. That's what I was going to say. If you have anything that you would like to share, just give it to one of those three, or to Stan, Dr. McLean, or Beth, and we will be happy to bring that to the meeting tomorrow.
Mrs. Angie Salisbury is the individual coordinating this entire event for the district. All of our schools already have their graduation coordinator, so they will be on the call. But what we want is to try to salvage some semblance of normalcy with graduation, while honoring and remaining legal with what is in place at the time we hold this event for our graduates.
So, Dr. McLean, if I may, this is related to graduation, but not the ceremony per se. Last Thursday, Graduate Services was in the district, and they were able to distribute graduation materials to the students at South Granville and Granville Central. Webb's Day is going to be this Thursday. Because of the weather last week, they were not able to get out to Webb to get that done, but the Webb students will get their opportunity to have that done. And from my understanding, the students had a great time just being able to celebrate and seeing all the teachers out, because all the teachers came out to see them last week.
And I will add, everyone is honoring social distancing.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you all so much. Board, any questions?
Yes, what time is the meeting tomorrow? Dr. Myrick?
Yes, sir. The meeting tomorrow, let me get my calendar here. I believe it is at 1 o'clock. It's at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. All right. Next, we'll be moving on to our budget amendments by Ms. Day.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Board members, tonight you have budget amendments for a few funds. The first one being the state fund, and this is budgeting the state COVID-19 funds that we received, $298,533. It is budgeting CTE funds for vacant positions during the year, $214,621. It's budgeting special education fund, $17,402, and it's an adjustment within the budget for the IABS grant funds. So this is an addition to the state fund budget of $530,556. The next budget amendment is for the local fund, and this is neither an increase or decrease to the total budget, but this is within the budget as requested by principals as they are closing out their school year. The third budget amendment is the capital outlay fund, and I will have to apologize to you for this. The explanation was left off of the original copy that was on board docs over the weekend, but this has been updated with that information. But this is budgeting for the sales proceeds from Crescent Drive and from Creedmoor Annex building, the net proceeds that we received. It's budgeting for those, and that is being budgeted as major maintenance facility projects. It's $319,802. So this is an addition to the capital outlay budget.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Board members, do you have questions?
Hey, I have a question, Ms. Day.
Yes, sir.
On the going to the state allocation, 5100 regular instructional services, 217.9. What exactly is that doing?
So this is the culmination. Like when you see this budget amendment, this is the culmination of several different budget amendments. So if I look at specifically, that is part of the what the CTE funds that are being budgeted, as well as that IABS grant, the adjustment for that. Yeah, that's correct. So,
what does it do? What's it for?
So CTE money are funds used for that CTE program.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, what I'm looking at is 5100, and that's 217.9 on that line item. You know, down at the bottom in the explanation, you have different numbers. You have the state COVID funds of 298, but of the instructional services, is that doesn't, unless if you take the CTE out, that only leaves $3,000. Is that? I'm just trying to understand. Is 5100, is that CTE or what is that? And
well, so
and
that's
why
a great
would we
question.
get COVID funds for CTE?
So these are the CTE funds that we've received are not COVID funds. Those are based on vacancies in the CTE, the funds that we received for CTE during the year. So that's part of that. Then the other part is the IABS grant funds, and that is a adjustment within the budget. So that dollar figure is not listed in an explanation, but it is a movement within existing funds that have been budgeted. And that's for the difference. That is for the $3,300, which is that
Gotcha.
difference. Mm-hmm.
So if I'm to understand, 5100, the 217.9, that money would mostly be spent on CTE. Is that correct?
Correct. And that was because it's CTE money that we received from the state that is specifically for CTE purposes.
Oh, okay. Now, since we are remote learning right now, I mean, is that really going to be spent on CTE when we're in the remote learning right now?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Dr. Mack?
Yeah.
Yes, so the funds there are CTE funds, and they will be spent on equipment upgrades for the Department of Programs that we have in the CTE program. And that money has to be spent on CTE programming.
So again, that's another example of, that's money we cannot repurpose, correct? That's money that.
Correct, correct.
Right.
In 5,800 school-based support services, what is that for?
That is made up of several things. The biggest portion of that is the technology funds that we received, the COVID-19
Gotcha.
funds that we received, and that's used for technology, and there is a that purpose code. It's very specifically tied by the state of what purpose code we could use, and that's tied to this budget amendment document.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any further questions, board members? Okay, this comes to you as an action item tonight, and so we would entertain a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented by Ms. Day.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Dr. Houlihan and a second by Mr. Peace. Do we have any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Dr. McKnight?
Yes.
Mr. Peace?
Yes.
Mr. Udy?
Yes.
And Dr. Houlihan?
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Ms. Day, I believe you have a update to policy 4130 next.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Board members, you have policy 4130, discretionary admission, a change to that policy. We've recently had a situation that came up with a family that had multiple students wanting to attend Granville County schools from out of district. And their question revolved around if we had any kind of installment plan for a family that has multiple students that would wish to attend Granville County schools. So in consultation with the board attorney, this is some additional language being added to this policy to allow us to be able to accept an installment plan if a family has 3 or more children wishing to attend Granville County schools from out of county.
Okay, board members, this comes to you the same as the other policies tonight. They are a first read. If you would like to take movement on it, you can waive the first read, or you can hold this until the June board meeting.
Man,
I'd like to move, we'll waive the first read.
what is the, Mr. Rivers, are you, I'm sorry, did I?
I'm sorry. We both spoke at the same time. Go ahead, Dr. Houlihan.
Okay, my question is, I know at one time that the tuition scenario I thought was related to overcrowded schools and so forth. I may be wrong, but at least that's what I was thinking. My question is, given the openings and so forth we have classroom-wise, why do we even have a policy now that charges tuition?
And this may be obvious, but I think the origin was that these are folks who don't pay taxes in your district, but you are not required to charge tuition. So the amount that you charge is, I believe, equal to the local ADM that you get from the commissioners.
That's correct, Eva. That's correct.
So the example would be somebody outside of our county would use this policy to come into the county, and we would charge them that tuition to make up the fact that we would not get that money from our county commissioners, correct?
So we charge a per pupil, whatever that number is. I just mentioned that, you know, as much as we need children, and this may be an impediment to families who can't afford it, I throw it out there at least for, you know, at some point in time that we bring this back. Unless there's a strong feeling that we don't need to change it.
Okay. So the motion that Mr. Rivers made was to waive the first reading. Do I have a second for that?
I never actually got to make the motion because I deferred to Dr. Houlihan.
Okay,
But I
I'm
have
sorry,
a quick
go ahead.
question.
Yes, sir.
That's okay. I have a quick question. Just to confirm, if a child, say in Vance County, wants to come to Granville County Schools, regardless what we decide to do with the local funds, the state money still comes to us, correct?
If that student is in attendance to Granville County Schools at our 20th day, then it's part of our ADM.
Yes, so they have to
Okay.
enroll during those first 20 days or attending, to get counted.
So if someone from Vance County decided in November they wanted to come to our school system, it'd be like somebody leaving a charter school and coming to our school system. We would not get the state funding, correct? The balance of the state funding, a prorated amount.
That's correct. The counting is done in those first 20 days. So you would get it for the following year if they were still with you.
If they stay.
Right. Which in the past is, yeah, in the past, Dr. Houlihan, as you recall, that's been a bit of a sore subject. We were having 80 and 100 children, for whatever reason, come back to us from a charter school, say in October or throughout the year, and we didn't get the prorated amount of money. So we were educating children and filling our classrooms and not getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the history.
Well, I just asked a question. I think we ought to move forward, and then maybe at some point in time down the road, we might want to address the money part of it. But hey, I think we probably need to go on.
I'll add to this, gentlemen, I'm certainly open to the conversation. I must say, this particular parent, it just broke my heart. She had 3 children. Our tuition was there. Our policy says it must be paid in full, in advance. And I'm like you. I mean, we're in need of ADM, and I really had difficulty looking at her saying, I needed all of that money up front in order for your youngsters to come. And she just didn't have it. And I didn't have the authority to waive it or to do something creative for her. So that was really the genesis of this. So I'm certainly open to any of the thinking here. It's a tough time out there, and I don't want us to miss out on the opportunity to do something creative here. But this is a real scenario. That's why that is the part why we're bringing it. This really happened.
And Mr. Chair, I have to go ahead and restate my motion to waive the first read.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to waive the first read by Mr. Rivers. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. A motion by Mr. Rivers, second by Mr. Peace. We'll do a roll call vote to waive the first reading. You need a 2/3 majority. Mr. Rivers?
Yes.
Dr. McKnight?
Yes.
Mr. Peace?
Yes.
Mr. Udy?
Yes.
Dr. Houlihan? Dr. Houlihan?
Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that does pass to waive the first reading, and now we come back to actually entertaining the motion on the floor. Do we have a motion to approve the changes to the discretionary admission policy as presented?
So moved. Motion.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Peace and a second by Mr. Udy. Is there any further discussion? So if you're ready to vote, Mr. Rivers,
Yes?
Dr. McKnight,
Yes.
Mr. Peace,
Yes.
Mr. Udy,
Yes.
Dr. Houlihan.
Yes.
All right, and so that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Day, board travel and a financial update.
Mr. Richardson, board members, you have board travel as of March 31st, 2020. As of that time, $4,779.87 has been spent, and you can see how that breaks out by board member and by type of expense. So the remaining balance in the budget for 1920 is $5,844.13. Moving on to the financial update. It's a financial update as of March 31st, 2020. At that point, we're 75% through the year. Our percentages are in line and our expenditures are within budget. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Day. You also have a budget update for us tonight as well?
Yes, board members, there's not an attachment there, but I'll just give you an update that the electronic document of the budget has been submitted to the county. It was submitted the next day after the board approved it, and we are working on the hard copies to be submitted to the county. The printing office is working on that, as well as hard copies for you all. So we will be sending you a hard copy of the budget document, as well as getting those to the county. We're hopeful that will be this week. The county did allow us, given the situation, a little bit more time to be able to get them those hard copies. So we're working on that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Day. Board members, any questions about the budget? As we talked about earlier, Mr. Rivers has made a request for us to take up some items related to finances, and you'll be getting more information about that later on as we prepare for the May work session. Ms. Day and Ms. Lofton, I believe you have the next item.
Yes, Mr. Richardson. If board members, if you will direct your attention to the memo, it is the 805-1. Stan is pulling that up, and I'll just kind of walk through that memo because I think it lays out this pretty well, all the different areas associated with this purchase. So because of board policy 6420, contracts with the board, we are bringing you this purchase, which is in excess of $100,000. So that you have attached a purchase requisition. It just means that we have entered it into our system. It doesn't mean it's gone anywhere. It's not been purchased. Nothing has been purchased yet. But it's for $109,985.60 to Trinity 3, and it is for 334 Chromebooks. They each have a 4-year warranty and Google management license. It also includes the purchase of 11 carts for classroom charging. This purchase, combined with existing device, provides one-to-one devices for 3rd grade students throughout the district. So in consultation with the board attorney, as far as the competitive purchasing and meeting the board policy 6430 state purchasing requirements, we have used the interlocal purchase system, TIPS, TIPS, competitive group purchasing has been referenced. And that is a cooperative that we have joined, and that we're able to utilize their bidding process. So they have a bid with Trinity 3, and we have verified with TIPS that the price that we have obtained for this contract is within the bid that TIPS has done for this, for those specific items. So the other piece of this is what funding is being used for this purchase. And so this is what is being used is the state COVID-19 funds. And I just, as a reminder, put at the bottom, what the COVID-19 state funds could be used for. They are used for, is very specific, school nutrition, child care, remote learning, and sanitation incurred due to the school building closure for COVID-19. So this falls under those purposes. But Ms. Lofton and I are here available to answer any questions that you might have.
Board members, what questions do you have?
I have one question real quick for Ms. Lofton.
Sure.
Hi, Gwen. I know, well, I guess maybe 2-3 years ago, we went from the MacBooks because they became prohibitively expensive to the Chromebooks. I was just wondering, we know the Chromebooks do not have quite the capability of the MacBooks. I was just wondering what your assessment is and Dr. McLean's assessment and Dr. Myrick's. Are the Chromebooks working? Are they doing everything that we need them to do?
Yes, I would say overall they definitely have been working. If you think about how much of your technology work is done through the internet, so much has shifted in that direction that these devices that are web-based are really working well. I will tell you the one caveat where we're having an issue with remote learning is the students who are trying to get, is it called work keys? Is that what it's called, where students have to get the Microsoft Office certification, and that isn't on the Chromebook. So we're trying to figure out ways for the small group of students who have to get Microsoft Office certification. Usually it's not a problem when we're in school because we have alternative devices available for them for the few that actually need something that a Chromebook can't provide. But for the most part, students are very happy with Chromebooks, teachers are happy with Chromebooks, and they're able to do what they need to do. They're also extremely affordable, and the 4-year warranty has been an absolute game changer. They've really prolonged the life of the devices, and it's helped our technicians repair as much as they can in-house and have become really good at that. But if it's something beyond their expertise, we're able to send it off and get a replacement or get it repaired. So I would say that they're definitely a good substitute for the MacBooks that we used to have. I know Kevin is one of our technicians and he happens to be helping, so Kevin, feel free to add anything into the chat that you would like. But I stand behind the recommendation of Chromebooks.
Thank you, I'm glad to hear that. I just wanted to check.
Other questions, board members? Okay, this comes to you as an action item tonight, and so you see the recommendation there for this Chromebook purchase. Do we have anyone that would like to make that motion?
I'll move past the purchase order.
All right, do we have a second for that?
I second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Rivers and a second by Dr. McKnight to approve the requisition order for Chromebook purchase as presented. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Rivers?
Yes?
Dr. McKnight?
Yes.
Mr. Peace?
Yes.
Mr. Udy?
Yes.
Dr. Houlihan?
Yes.
All right, so that passes. All right. Our next item of business is 8.06. Dr. Winborn has a request from Facility and Operations. Dr. Winborn?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the third week of April, I received a phone call from Commissioner Zelotes J, and he was calling to find out if it was okay to replace the sign, the Grotor Oak Hill school sign, with a commemorative sign. I talked to him about the fact that I had remembered that he had come and made public comment to the board back in October, I believe, of 2019. And at that time, he had requested access to the outside ball fields and basketball courts, which the board granted, community access and gave Mr. J the key. But he also, at that time, made, according to the minutes, made mention of a commemorative plaque. And I think he subsequently maybe had some communication with Dr. McLean about it, although no decisions or actions had been made regarding, the placement of the plaque or the design of the plaque really, or, all of the details about what it might mean to have a sign or a plaque on display at the property. So, I'm sorry, I had the wrong thing up. So you'll see this. I told Mr. J that probably the best thing to do would be to submit in writing your request to the board. And so this is the email that was forwarded by the clerk to the Board of Commissioners, Deborah Weary. And so there's also a photograph here of the plaque. I do not know the dimensions of this. It's difficult to tell the scale of this, but I don't think it's small, and I think it's meant to be on a pole of some height. And it's my understanding that in my conversation with Mr. J, he is requesting that this sign be placed where the current school sign exists. The sign that says the name of the school. And this is placed in a prominent location inside of the perimeter fence. There is about a 4-foot chain link fence that runs the length of the front of the school just outside the DOT right-of-way. So this sign is inside of that and about literally in front of the school. There is a flower bed underneath the current sign, so part of his request is that they replace the school sign with this sign. So tonight we are bringing his request to you for discussion.
Okay. Board members, you have seen and heard the request made by Mr. Jay on behalf of the Joe Toller Alumni Association. And so I'd like to open up the floor and hear your thoughts and discussion of this matter.
Stan, I think one thing.
Go ahead.
I wasn't sure who that was.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Peace. One thing concerns me, if we put it on outside the state right-of-way. I know we're still trying to sell the property, and in fact, I'd also like an update on where we are with that when we get a chance, but I think that's not a good idea. If we sell it, then the new owners can do with it as they please. I really think it needs to be on state right-of-way, just like all the history signs, North Carolina history markers and all that. Or if we put it on Toller property, then we need to be able to make arrangements to move it when we sell the property so it's not lost. And obviously, I think that's something we got to consider.
Okay. Was it Mr. Peace that was wanting to speak next?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I agree with Mr. Rivers. Number one, I don't think we need to take the Joe Toller sign down until the property is sold. Because if we do it before we sell the property, we might have to move the sign again, really. Because it's going to be right in front of this, whoever buys it, property. So, my thoughts are to leave the Joe Toller sign there until the property is sold at least. And I would like for this sign to be on our state property, really. That way you don't have to be concerned about whether we had to move it later or not. And I think all of those kinds of signs that I see are on property, some of them even say that what they're advertising is a block away. So it doesn't have to be right there in front of the school. Just my thoughts. And my own idea is ride up for the day and have a look see, just to make sure I understood what he was asking.
Board members, anyone else have a comment or a thought? Attorney Dubison, I have a question. So if we went, it obviously looks like one of these historical markers. Are we allowed to be able to put that in the state right of way?
I don't know the answer to that. I imagine that there is some sort of process if you were looking for a, to put something in the right of way, or else, it's just subject to getting removed. You sort of put, I would say, at your own risk. So I don't know the answer to that as to how you would get to put something in the roadside. I think, although I can certainly find out. As far as putting it on your property, I do agree. You have to be aware that if the property is for sale, I would just recommend that there be some written understanding of either, if the property is sold, we're going to return this to the Alumni Association. In other words, one of my questions when this came up was, well, are they donating this sign to the school system to be owned by the school system? Or, I mean, I don't think that's been thought through, but there needs to be some arrangement for what's going to happen when you sell the property, because otherwise it conveys with the property and the new owner. I mean, I would not recommend that you be put in a position of having to make a condition, that the new owner keep that sign. I don't think that would be a good position to be in as a seller.
Thank you. Board members, other comments?
This is Mr. Yudi.
Yes, sir.
This is Mr. Okay. Can we just defer this back and let them do all the legwork, see if they can get it approved by the legislature to put on the state property? And let them be responsible to find out all the information.
I think that could absolutely be a thought, and probably the right thing to do, so that we're not tied up into it. Would you like to make that in the form of a motion?
Just to be clear, Mr. Judy, you're saying that we're giving back to Mr. J, or to do the legwork in terms of figuring out whether we're on state property or not?
Yeah, let them do the legwork and contact whoever they have to get it approved to put it on state property, because of the problem it's going to present if we have it on private. Just let them do all the work, and then we just stay out of it.
Well, my concern with that is that, number one, that's not what he's on. So my question is he going to be willing to do that?
Well, that would be up to them if we deferred it back to them.
Well, I don't have any problem with deferring it to him. My concern is that, and I assume if he wanted someplace, he'll go ahead and try to figure out what he needs to do. Okay.
Mr. Peace?
Yes, sir.
I believe the county has a park, not quite, but almost directly across the street from Joe Toller, which I believe is the Joe Toller Oak Hill Park or something, if I recall correctly. And maybe that's something we could suggest and explain to him the situation where if we put it on school property, when it sells, it becomes the ownership of the new owner, who may choose to take it down and recycle it. And we can't make any preconditions of the sale, so maybe we can suggest it go somewhere nearby if he can't get permission to put it on the state right away. I think my gut feeling is that I don't think the state will allow you to put a sign like that on their right of way. So I think, unfortunately, this is going to be probably more complicated than we would like.
Well, the only concern that I have about Mr. Rivers is that if we don't, well, I'm saying you don't need to put it where the Joe Toller sign is for the school right now. And other than that, I mean, the option you come up with other than that is up to him. I mean, yeah, I don't see, well, we could give him some options, but, I mean, I would think that would be up to him to decide.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you.
So, you know, the only question that we have to answer is, do we want to replace the school sign with this sign?
Okay.
And personally, I'm not in favor of doing that.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree also. I'm not in favor. It costs us money and it, yeah, not a good idea.
All right, so,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not allow this to be put on school property and to defer it back to their committee for their future reference.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Udi. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Udi, a second by Mr. McKnight to refer back to the alumni group that we do not wish to allow this on Granville County Public School property. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, the one comment I want to make is we, Mr. J, this is very, very important to him, and I think we certainly don't want to offend him or hurt his feelings or offend the Joe Toll or Oak Hill community. So to the extent that when we convey this message, it can be conveyed with some explanation of why we are in the position we're in that we support him being able to honor Joe Toller High School, that we're sort of in an awkward bind here. But if you get where I'm going, we want to. I think Mr. J is a good friend of the school system, and we certainly want to I think be sensitive to his concerns.
Okay. All right.
And this
So
is,
further
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
ma'am.
that's what I was going to ask, is just the guidance for the staff. If please correct me if I'm misunderstanding, but it sounds like the desire is to, reject it being on the school property because of concerns that it would not be, you wouldn't be able to require it to be maintained there by the future owner, but ask that they look into nearby property such as state or county where it could be placed more permanently.
Yes, I believe that's correct. So further discussion, board members? All right, so you have a motion and a second, and if you're ready to vote, we'll go around the table. Mr. Rivers?
Yes?
Dr. McKnight?
Yes.
Mr. Peace?
Yes.
Mr. Udi?
Yes.
Dr. Houlihan?
I think he just left the meeting, if I'm not mistaken. He may have gotten bumped off.
Okay, all right. All right, at that point, that passes. Dr. McLean, does that need to be a letter from the board or from you on our behalf? Or?
We will get, I'll have Stan and I to get with Attorney Dubus, and we'll get something crafted this week.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. All right, well, board members, we're at the end of the agenda part for open session, and so now we will entertain a motion for closed session.
Mr. Richards?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to closed session in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6, 143-318-11A3, 143-318-11A5, and Section 115C-321 for personnel and attorney-client privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Udi. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
All right, do we have any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we'll now enter